And one of the reasons that this came up for me, just thinking about this, is we just took this big vacation. Is your mic on now?
I think it's working now. Yeah.
Okay.
Should be working now.
Okay, awesome. I was just going to give a little context of why this topic came up
Okay.
for us. Uh, I think it was my idea to talk about it. So we just took this big vacation to Florida, to the Panhandle, a lovely place. And I think the way I've been programmed, socialized to think is, oh, looking forward to the vacation. Great things are going to happen on the vacation. We're going to connect with each other, and there's going to be so much joy and all of this. And probably all of us have the experience of vacation kind of just often is just like normal life. There are moments of joy, there are moments of challenge, there are moments of boredom, there are moments of excitement. It's all the same. So what I was thinking is I have a son, Jackson, who's 14, and on vacation, I was looking forward to having, these joy moments with my kids and you and our friend Jason and his kids who came. And I did have joy moments with Jackson on the vacation. But to me, interestingly, yesterday, he and I had this amazing joy moment just in our house. He was sitting on the couch in the living room and he was playing with our two Australian Shepherd dogs. And I was kind of running around trying to get ready for Christmas, as all the parents are doing right now. And I just had a nudge to stop what I was doing, kind of get out of my thinking mind of what I needed to do and all that. And I just had this nudge to sit down with him on the couch, which is kind of hard for me because I was in that mode of, I'm taking care of Christmas right now. This is not the time for fun, my thinking mind is telling me. But I had a nudge to sit down on the couch with him. And we just started talking in these Southern accents and just horsing around with the two dogs. And we were laughing and tons of eye contact and just making jokes with each other. And the dogs were having so much fun. And it was 5 to 10 minutes of just pure joy and presence with my son. And it was so much fun. And it's probably one of the nicest moments I've had with him in a really long time. It was better than any moment we actually had on vacation. And it just really got me thinking about how joy, connection comes in. It seems sort of unexpectedly. We can't really plan for it. It's just sometimes there. And I'm so glad that I was present to it and I didn't miss out on it. My thinking mind kind of wanted to take me away to do stuff. So this is just what got me thinking about these unexpected moments of joy, which are, I think, available to us a lot, but we might miss them even.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So, you said that you got a nudge to just sit down, and then that all transpired.
Yes, I got a nudge and it was uncomfortable for me because I was in mom work mode.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a lot of parents experience this, but part of the reason I like to go on vacation or out with my kids is because when I'm out of the house, it's way easier for me to be present with them.
Okay.
The house to me is my place of work. There's
Yeah.
right that saying, a mother's work is never done. There's always a million things that
Mm-hmm.
probably any parent could be doing around the house, just keep things running. And we have our own business, and so my house seems like a place of work for me, and that's a limiting belief right there, right? I could say, oh, it's also a place of joy
Yeah.
and fun. So I'm holding some limiting beliefs around all of this as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, we tend to presume, I think, that certain things need to happen, or certain types of activities, or certain experiences, whatever they are, that those are the ones that are going to have all the meaning and give us all the joy and all that stuff, or
Yes.
that type of thing. But yeah, I've had the same experience that, in fact, I can find it a little distracting, sort of how amazing the universe is. And so I can sometimes find myself like not listening to people by accident, because I'm just sort of marveling at the universe. And so I think it becomes more and more apparent to us, that each moment has its own flavor of joy. And really, it's up to us if we want to kind of seek that out or not. Like, some moments are hard to find the joy in, right? And other moments are easy to find the joy in. And so I think really a lot of the things that we're trying to learn to do is how to just fall upon the joy easily in a more consistent way.
Yes. And
Yeah.
two things that come up for me is, one, the law of attraction, or you've really wisely talked about how we're projecting our inner reality onto the outer reality. So whichever way you want to think of it. But I'm just thinking myself that, as I've kind of said already, I've been really programmed to think joy, happiness, having fun is only for discrete periods of time.
Yeah.
After
Block
work.
off the fun time.
Yes.
Right.
So most of us have been acculturated into this Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 work day. Or, we started off by going to school for 6-7 hours a day, and then jobs, 8 hours a day or more.
Yeah. We had sort of distinct work and play times, right?
The whole matrix programming is you will be working and maybe happy, maybe not happy, but you're going to be working, and you need to be that's what's happening during that time. And then after work, that's more the time for fun, or on the weekends or on vacations. And I think we all know so many people who kind of just live for the weekend, they live for the vacation, and maybe they're not really even enjoying the bulk of their daily life. And I think I too, I'm still somewhat in that programming. So just in a law of attraction way, I want to dissolve all that programming and just embrace what I think is the truth, that joy is present, could be present at any moment. Doesn't have to be after work.
Totally.
Or on vacation. Like, it seems obvious, but the programming is so strong.
I don't think it is obvious to us. Like you said, we're taught sort of the opposite, that
yes,
we're taught that there's time to have fun and there's time to work.
Yes.
So we're taught totally a different, structure of thought. So it makes total sense that we have trouble realizing, oh, actually, I don't really have to limit myself this way. And I think once you have an experience like you did, and like are very like present with it and like aware that, oh, look what I just did. And it like expands that box, or sort of breaks down those barriers, that now you can start to orient yourself to knowing that that's more true for you. And then the law of attraction will ensure that you start to experience more joy, because you're aware there is joy here, but maybe I'm not sure where it is right now. And it's sort of like, the way that I like to look at it is, every moment has like an infinite number of perspectives that you can observe the moment within, or through. And so really all you're ever doing is choosing how to look at stuff. You're sort of
and if I'm holding a program that I'm only gonna have fun or experience joy when I'm not working or when I'm out of my house, then I'm absolutely creating that, as within, so without.
Yeah.
So if I can loosen up that very so limiting belief. It's really a limiting belief. I want to
Yep.
really want to loosen that limiting belief up. Then I'm sure I will experience more of it if I'm open to that possibility. And part of this for me is about faith and just trusting my guidance, because my thinking mind, boy, it wants to be in control. When I think I have work to do and make money and make sure there's the Christmas presents are wrapped and all the things that a lot of us think about in our thinking minds, my thinking mind just kind of wants to get to work and is very directed about that. And it's just this ongoing practice for me to have faith in my own guidance that, okay, in the middle of what I'm doing, that I can stop and hang out with my son on the couch and play with the dogs, that I don't, things aren't going to just be a catastrophe if I'm present with him for those moments.
Yeah.
So it's just this, to me, I'm in this orientation of just a deepening of my faith in my own guidance and relaxing the thinking mind's agenda.
Right. Yeah. Do you find when you're in that work mode, do you find that enjoyable, that state?
Well, I actually do. I like to work.
Yeah,
I
I thought
like to
so.
be busy. I like doing things.
So
Yeah.
it may be something to consider, that it just may be in your nature to lean towards working, doing work. And, maybe part of it is just to be like, okay with that as well.
Yeah. And thank you, because you're helping me realize that I think I actually derive a lot of joy from
From work.
working,
Yeah.
whether it's kind of keeping my house clean and organized, taking care of the kids, and my actual work.
Yeah.
I find it fun and very fulfilling. And I always like to see the results of my efforts. It's just fun for me to see what happens when I do things and change things. And yeah, so maybe an understanding for me and maybe other people listening is that all of it is joy for me. And so like things that maybe I might have been socialized to think are work and drudgery. Like I enjoy doing the dishes, actually. I
Yeah.
enjoy doing laundry. I just like doing things. I find it fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good then. I would say that, like, really all then you're wanting to probably do is like remove any of the beliefs that create those distinct places for fun and joy, and just sort of, you can embrace that I like to do work, right? Like, and then
Yeah,
then you can
I
just
think
be
I
fine
kind
with
of
all of it.
exactly. I think
Yeah.
I actually just enjoy all the aspects of my life, actually.
Yeah.
And I would just say one of the main perks, we talked about this last night, of being an entrepreneur, being in business for oneself, is I am able to pretty much decide the flow of my day and what I'm doing. And so I'm always doing what I think is most important. And that is such an amazing freedom to have as a perk of having your own business. Someone's not telling you what to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
awesome.
even though like I'm very busy, I would say, as a single mom and a business owner and running a household on my own, etc. I'm very busy, but every aspect of it I do actually enjoy.
Yeah. So then they're, I mean, basically it sounds like there's not much to work on there. It sounds like you're doing pretty good.
I think,
you know,
yeah, I think that the first limiting belief we talked about was this idea that I've held, that I can only have fun outside of the house or something with my kids, maybe. So letting go of that. And then the second limiting belief that we're talking about right now that I think I can let go of after this conversation is that in general, what I'm doing, that it isn't fun. But I actually think everything I do during the day, I pretty much enjoy. There's joy in all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's the only thing that I was trying to check on was like, do you sort of pull yourself out of doing the work because you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be present or whatever, and like kind of have this little conflict at all, you know what I mean?
I think what happens for me is I get brain lock. I tend to just enjoy what I'm currently doing, and then pulling myself out of it to do something else is a little painful for me.
Right.
So if I'm in like a certain mode, I'm just really connected with doing whatever I'm doing, and then pulling myself out to do something else. The transitional period feels a little challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that this is one of sort of the more I think the more we accept ourselves and start to like embrace ourselves and love ourselves, sort of the more this type of awareness starts to come in, and like basically one of the main oppositions to our joy, and I think, is our resistance to what's happening now, right? Like a lot of times we're stuck in like a negative outlook on what life is brought to us now, or maybe an hour ago, or
Yes.
yesterday, or whatever. So we're kind of living in these stories a little bit.
Yes.
And when we're doing that, we're not present. And so when we're not present, like we're either living in a good memory that brings us a good feeling, or we're living in a bad story that brings us bad feelings.
Yeah. And just to piggyback off what you're saying, I think for me, I've been in a bit of a story of, oh my goodness, I'm in charge of so many things. And sometimes it can feel stressful. And then I can think, in a way, oh, this isn't fun, or this isn't joyful, that I've got a lot of balls I keep up in the air. But when I really think about it, I actually enjoy it. I wouldn't want to give up any of those balls. I love being a mom. I love being in a relationship. I love running my own business. I love having my own house. So even though at times it, it can feel like a lot, I do actually really enjoy all of it. And I think part of it again is just faith that it will all work out, that I can keep I mean, me and source spirit
Right.
guiding me can just keep it all up. And I think that's part of just moving through the fear. My thinking mind can think, oh boy, there's a lot going on, sister. Can you keep this all up?
Yeah. So I'd like to give a very strange example of finding joy in everything. So this is how I found joy in talking to a racist person. Hopefully it doesn't trigger anyone. It's not meant to do that. I'm not going to get into all the details of what really they were saying. But basically, they were positing that the Aryan race is superior. And at the same time as this, they were saying that they believe in unity. So, at first, that the racism bit got me. Like, it triggered me. For a moment, I was like, this person's a stupid idiot. This is a trash bag human. These types of thoughts. These judgmental thoughts, basically. But then I was like, oh, wait, I'm being judgmental. There's no purpose to any of this judgment. And I let go of that and sort of forgave myself, forgave them, and realized this is actually amazing. And then suddenly I got very elated because the concept that they brought up is so diametrically opposed that it boggles the mind, like that. How could this person's mind even arrive at this worldview? It doesn't make sense with itself. It argues with itself. And so I was just mesmerized by how incredibly odd the mind is, and how deep we can delude ourselves, these types of things. And I was really grateful that this person was talking all this nonsense. Really is what it was, mostly nonsense. But because I was able to watch that and look at it from that perspective of, oh, this is an amazing conversation. There's no judgment.
Meaning you just had sort of curiosity of this consciousness of, and maybe it helped you understand other people who might hold that consciousness, just like a window into it.
Well, the funny thing is that I was trying to get him to explain it to me. So I was like, I need you to reconcile unity with superior race thought. How can those two things exist together? And then he just insulted me a bunch of times. And then so I said, okay, that's fine. Anyways, can you reconcile unity with this superior race thing? And then he just insulted me again a bunch of times. So what I concurred is that his own cognitive dissonance is so strong. He has no information to share, really. So he just attacks me because he doesn't know what else to do, and he's uncomfortable because he's realizing his own nonsense, right? So, I didn't learn too much from it. As far as, I was hoping he would say something like anything that opposes unity really interests me, especially if it's like a stance I haven't heard. I think that these thought experiments and routines are very important to go through as we like step into unity consciousness. It's really important to question it and wonder about various paradoxes. And so the whole point of what I'm saying is that I was able to find joy speaking to a racist person. I had just a mere moment of like anger and like resentment towards this person for harboring the views they harbor, right? I had a very brief moment of that, and I could have stuck in that. Like I could have went a whole other way and had a whole other experience of trying to argue with them, or or even stewing on it, or complaining about the human race, that there's people that think this way, or I could have went so many other ways.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh my God, no. This is like a juicy bit of strange human. It's like a zoo in many ways. It's like I'm watching a strange, magnificent animal do the weirdest thing in the world. That's sort of what it's like. So it's very joyous. It's beautiful. The creator is so confused in this person. And so it's just beautiful. And then there's also a compassion for them, because they're clearly not going to feel very comfortable with these worldviews that don't make any sense. Their reality has no framing. And so the reason I bring all this up is just because we're literally just choosing how to view everything. If I was able to experience joy while talking to a racist, I could probably experience joy while I'm being yelled at by a family member, right? It really depends on which perspective or dimension of the experience that I'm choosing to observe and choosing to energize.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because one of the things I was thinking about is, as I've progressed through this incarnation, and like many of us just traverse through some really challenging, heartbreaking situations, my concept of what is joyful has really expanded. So in other words, so let's say my kids, so last night one of the dogs threw up, and And my son was trying to clean it up and he started gagging and it was just very difficult for him. It was not joyful. For me, it's really almost a joyful experience because I'm not in
watching him clean it up or cleaning it up yourself.
No. I meant cleaning it up.
I thought you were like, like sort of.
No.
Okay.
No. I felt bad for my son. So I was working and my son was in the room and he started cleaning up and he had a hard time. And I could hear him and I came in, I said, no, it's okay. Step away. I'll take care of it.
Right.
And so what I meant was, for me, it's almost a joyful experience to clean up the dog's throw up because I've had other experiences that were so harrowing, that were so painful. What I'm trying to say is, I think for many of us in this incarnation, as we've gone through really big initiations and challenges that were really, really painful, the more everyday little things that come up that maybe when we were younger might have been a big deal and not joyful and very difficult.
Right.
We have a different orientation to all of that right now. And to me, that's one of the most beautiful expansions as a person gets older. And it's not, some younger people are able to hold that consciousness right now, and some older people, may not be. But just in myself, I can see that I pretty much enjoy doing almost everything at this point, particularly when there's not massive heartache involved. If I'm not under massive heartache, I'm in joy, basically.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I
like
do.
when you've been through a lot, the small stuff, it doesn't bother you, right?
You gain perspective. And
you gain perspective.
Yeah. I mean,
and I think this is one of the reasons that there is this, I think, often expansion of peace and joy as you get older, because the things that might have really bugged you in the past, they kind of, that orientation falls away. The more you kind of go through life and have had your hard knocks and challenges, you just realize, don't sweat the small stuff. And so that's just, I think, a really beautiful potential experience as we go through life.
Yeah. And then I think you eventually transcend all that conceptualization around this is bad and that's good, and this experience was good and this one was bad, and all that stuff.
Totally.
Starts to just fall away.
We can also take that larger spiritual perspective that every single heartache I went through was for my expansion and it served me. And so then everything becomes, even what can feel like a heartache in the moment, we can take that larger perspective and even have gratitude and even possibly joy, that, okay, I'm going through something right now. It's going to give, something positive is going to come out of this.
I get excited when weird stuff happens. It looks like it's messing with my plans personally. So like, sometimes I have to sort of rope it in a little bit because other people would take it the wrong way. Like, it would seem like I'm perhaps getting joy out of other people's suffering, or it might seem that type of thing. But really what's happening is I'm just so excited to see what's going on that, it's hard for me to be worried about it beyond, oh, I didn't expect this. I'm going to learn something from this, I bet. I don't know what it is. I'm going to learn something. It's going to be interesting.
Yes. We talked about this on another stream about this orientation of curiosity,
right?
Of holding curiosity no matter what is happening, even when the thinking mind thinks, oh my gosh, what's happening is a disaster, it's a catastrophe, but somehow holding, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what the expansion is going to be here. Yeah, that's just, it's the best orientation I think to have.
I think so.
One of them at least.
If we can.
And another point along with what we're talking about that I've really noticed now at this stage of my incarnation is that even in the what I thought were the worst situations of my life, and I talk a lot about my divorce custody situation, was to my human very excruciating, very painful. But even during that time period, which lasted a couple of years, there were absolutely moments of joy and moments of real connection and bliss. And I think I think I maybe wouldn't have thought that. I think I would have thought that when you're going through something very difficult, it's sort of this blanket of like doom and gloom. It's all dark and all painful.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been my experience. My experience has been it's not necessarily like that at all. There are always moments. And again, if you're open to it, I think again, that's like a limiting belief that I held, that, oh, if I'm going through something really painful, it's just all dark. But looking back, it wasn't like that. There were
Yeah.
many
And
moments
that's
of
our
joy.
that's our instinct too. Like, you know, we tend to group everything. Sort of, that's, you know, how our mind tends to try to make sense of the world. It tends to group everything together. So like, a bad few years, you know, we just kind of would presume, or a terrible situation that is just terrible, it must make the entire life terrible for the duration of that experience, right? It must. But that doesn't really hold true, because in each moment, like our attention can't be on the negativity and on joy. So what ends up happening is like we get distracted with something joyous, right? Or some peace or some love or something beautiful or whatever it is. We get distracted from our misery. We forget about it for a minute and we experience whatever. And then we remember our misery and go back to it. So yeah, I think it's literally just realizing that we're sort of choosing these things. Like most of it's unconscious, but then when we awaken, we become more conscious, more aware of like what's happening. And then we start to be able to more choose the orientation that fits.
Yeah. And this is, I think, we're getting to the core of another program and limiting belief in our society. So, for instance, if someone close to you dies, which of course there's so much grief around that. But it seems like there's a story that you are supposed to be sad the whole time. That,
Yeah.
even like funerals, at least I would say in Western culture, are tend to be more somber. And I mean, people do have this idea of celebrating someone's life, but I'll just speak for myself. I can feel pressure that I'm supposed to just be
Yeah.
very
Don't
serious and
smile. No
right and
jokes.
sad, and that
Yeah.
joy, no, there's no joy here. You can't have a moment of joy here. We need to be sad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. We have these categorizations that we make, and they vary from culture to culture, whatever it is. We do that constantly. We'll even do it when, for example, if you're feeling miserable, and I'm feeling great, I'm probably going to dampen my expression of that a little bit, right? Because I'm trying to be
Right.
compassionate. I'm trying to hold space for your feeling, not sort of pushing my joy, which is going to be like abrasive probably in that moment to you. It's going to not feel so good to watch me be perfectly fine and happy and having a great time while you're miserable.
That is so true.
So we tend to do that as well,
Yes,
where we like fake it a bit, or we'll dampen our own
joy
expression
if other people don't seem joyful.
if it doesn't feel appropriate for some reason.
Yes.
You know?
They're all like, basically, I feel like what we've talked about today is there are all these rules around feeling joy in our culture. You can't, you're maybe not supposed to feel it when you're working. Maybe not when you're doing your housework.
Work is supposed to be hard.
Yeah. And not at a funeral. And if someone else is not feeling joy, better not show too much, because it might trigger them or make them upset.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
So it's, no wonder maybe some of us are not experiencing as much joy as we could because it seems like there are rules around
Yeah, we
it.
put these rules on ourselves. Like, we agree to these rules. We don't
Yeah,
as
yes, we
children
do.
primarily, like we don't really realize what we're doing, but we agree to all these random rules without really
And
considering them. And then,
and for
you
good
know,
reason, because we probably there probably were times we were reprimanded
oh,
for
totally.
being in our joy, right? If we were at
Guaranteed.
school, like, don't laugh, don't giggle,
Hmm.
don't have fun. We need to work now, people,
And that's
right?
why, like, when you talk to kids, most of their favorite teachers are the ones that love their job, are
Yes.
joyfully teaching,
Yes.
and paying attention and stuff. They don't usually, those are the ones that they like because it doesn't feel like a nightmare. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
like a boring, I don't know, slog fest so much.
Right. Because I think that there's just so much fear programming in our culture about you need to be vigilant, you need to work hard, you need to plan for your retirement. And, all those things to some extent have veracity to some extent, but it's almost like, I know, at least for me, I can see joy as, am I allowed to feel joy? Is it safe to get into my joy? Because the stuff over here I need to take care of or whatever. So it's interesting.
Hmm. Yeah, and
It's
I mean, if we're talking about grief or something, if you're missing somebody that's passed away, um, you can sort of realize that what you're doing in those moments, and I'm not suggesting you shouldn't feel grief or, you should feel what arises, of course.
yeah,
But I am saying that, you do have an option of how you perceive that grief feeling, how that emotion is perceived. And so what you're feeling is your deep love for this person who's passed away. That's what you're
yes,
feeling. And then you're choosing a story of they're gone. I won't see them again, and I miss them, and I want them here. I want things to not be the way that they are.
yeah,
Um, and really, what the true nature of what you're experiencing there is just that you love them, right?
yeah,
That's really all that you're feeling, and then you create a bit of a story around why this is not good, right? And in our society, in our culture, like, we don't even understand death. People don't know what it is, so it's understandable that they think that when somebody dies that they're gone, or that that's somehow an ending. It's more like the next cycle, right? And we know that, but it still hurts us when we miss people, and it still hurts. So what I'm sort of saying is that feeling's going to come up, and it has to be experienced. And what I'm just positing, I guess, is that if we're conscious in those moments, we are able to determine how we experience that. And that's why, like, when I was at my nanny's funeral, when I went to my nanny's deathbed, um, I felt, it was a tinge of sadness, but mostly I felt happy. Mostly I felt joy about what was happening. Um, it felt beautiful to me. The whole framing of it has changed for me. And I'm not saying that if you feel bad when somebody's passing away that's bad. I'm just saying that like, sort of, we can trust that however it approaches and however we feel it, that's the right way. Like, so if it does feel bad and you don't know how to get out of the bad, then that you're in that stage, and that's fine. But if you are able to go, oh, actually, I can just notice how much I love this person and just be happy that they get to do this next journey, and I'll see them when I see them, right? Like, I'll catch up with them later.
yes.
It's,
And
and they're
I
they're
really,
here. They can hear you as well. So
yes.
let them
And
know,
I
right?
I like the word brutiful, brutal, beautiful,
Yeah.
brutiful. And to me, just so many situations line up with that feeling. Like, there might be some pain, say around someone passing, most likely there will be pain.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're also saying is there's also an experience that can be very beautiful to really feel how deeply we love this person and to be grateful to have had that experience with them. So
Yeah.
this idea that we can have more than one emotion around any experience, and they
Yeah.
can be very contrasting. They can be
Yeah.
very joy and sorrow.
Like you're either appreciating the experience you did have with them and grateful for that, or you're appreciating the lack of that experience being able to continue.
And
You're kind of looking at either way.
right. And why can't we just hold both of those? That there is some sadness that the human experience with them in this incarnation has concluded, and I'm sad about that. At the same time, I'm so grateful and happy for her having had the experience at all. To just, again, I feel so much of being human is just holding all of it, holding the
Mm-hmm.
joy, holding the sorrow, not cutting ourselves off from either one.
Yeah, yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah, yeah. I didn't
and
mean to imply, if I did, that we
oh,
should.
yeah, no. I didn't feel that you had. And
Okay.
this actually gets into another point I wanted to bring up is my experience has been the more I do feel pain, uh, the more I think I do feel joy as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we can close down our heart a bit and maybe not feel as much pain, but I think then you also maybe won't feel as much joy either. You're a bit shut down
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. And so I would say for me personally, since my awakening over the past 10 years or so, my heart has really opened, and the depth of pain I feel has definitely deepened.
Mm-hmm.
But the depth of joy that I feel, I think, has also heightened. So I think it's just an interesting practice
Yeah.
to open up, just you're opening up the valve of experiencing things. And yeah, you might experience pain a bit more deeply, and you're also going to experience joy more deeply too.
Yeah, yeah, most likely your perspective on the pain also shifts. So
Yes.
even though the
Yes.
pain can be a lot more, um, it's sort of different. It has a different quality to it. I'd say, like the
Yes.
experience, because you're not likely to resist it so much because you know that
Yes.
it's got to be felt. You're sort of aware of that. You know.
And at the very least, you don't see it as something wrong. Like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong that I'm feeling this way. That's one
Yeah.
of the big steps forward, at least I've taken, that if I do feel pain or sadness, I'm not like, oh my God, something's wrong. I need to fix something. I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel this way. Something needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
I think I've realized, no, nothing's wrong. And this is part of the human experience I'm having right now of feeling this pain.
Yeah, yeah, we'll either say, I got to fix something, or that person has to change because they're doing something that I don't like. And
Yes. Oh,
and
that's huge.
so
Yeah, totally.
both of those we can sort of notice that we do that, and we fall into these habits, and even when we're aware of that it's a thing, we still can fall into these things sometimes.
And again, somewhat like this trajectory we were talking about earlier of as we go through challenging situations through life, we start to not sweat the small stuff, and we start to not be so bothered by things we might have been bothered by when we were younger.
Mhm.
At the same time, as we expand our capacity to feel everything, this is also, I think, just a beautiful hallmark of moving through life in this way, of our capacity to just hold more and more and more, both pain and joy.
Totally. Totally, yeah.
Um, and the last point I had was I wanted to ask you, and perhaps I'll answer as well. how do you experience joy? What is joy for you? And this might be different for everybody,
Mm,
how they would define joy.
interesting. Okay. So how would you define your joy?
Okay, so probably I have like two really big sources of experiencing joy. One is really connecting with another person or something I'm doing, like a project. So, for instance, I told the story of my son yesterday when we were on the couch with the dogs and laughing and giggling, and we were just like super connected. I don't know how to describe it. We're just like we were like one in that moment. It felt like we were one, and I know we are one in the larger spiritual perspective. And I would kind of call what I had with him a namaste moment. Namaste meaning the light in me sees the light in you, and it just felt like our light was connecting. Our whole beings were present and connecting with each other. And that's one of my favorite ways to experience joy, when I feel really one with someone and we're connecting. And it doesn't have to be over something actually happy. It could be over something that is actually quite sad. Many times in therapy with clients, they're talking about things that are very sad and heartaches and things they're working through, and I feel very connected to them in those moments. It's not that I'm joyful that they're sad, but I'm joyful that I'm connecting with another human,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that my presence perhaps is helpful, at least witnessing and just being present, holding space for them. So for me, it doesn't have to be a happy situation. It's just feeling that human connection where we become one together.
Right.
I like to call it a namaste moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then another big source of joy for me is I love when I feel I'm improving something. And again, like with clients, that's something I love, when I just feel, oh, they've moved through something and they feel better. That's a huge source of joy for me.
Yeah.
Or even just anything with my kids, or doing the dishes, because, oh, now the dishes are clean. So for me, I love to connect with people. I love to improve things. And then I also sometimes have that feeling of connection with my projects. For instance, when I wrote my dissertation, I was so connected with my dissertation. It was like it was a living being, and we were lovers. And it was my lover for 2 to 3 years. It was my life. I just became
I'm
very
jealous
connected.
of your dissertation now.
Yeah, I just became so connected to the ideas and the inspiration I was having. And I really think God was just working through me. I think in a way I was channeling the material.
Right.
So I was really probably just connected to source is probably what it was. But
Very
yes,
cool.
those are my moments of joy. What about
Awesome.
you?
So I'm trying to figure out how to describe my orientation. Mine is I no longer have any because to the joy. Really. Like, pretty much I'm feeling joyous and blissful. Pretty much joyous, blissful, blissed out, at peace, unless I'm not. So that sounds kind of silly, but
It sounds amazing.
there is no because for me anymore. Like, so even if I'm feeling like really tired and the body's aching or sick, or or the world is not at that moment not being how I'd really prefer it to be, these things don't adjust my presence of joy. I'm joyous because I don't see anything to be unjoyous about. So I'm fine. It's all good. the exception, what causes me to fall out of the joy now is when I feel not accepted. So more I notice what the only thing which seems to perturb me in any way is when people aren't accepting me. Actually, not people, but specific people. If it's a stranger, I am completely indifferent to it. But if it's a person that I care about who is essentially criticizing or judging me, or I'm, maybe they're not, I'm just feeling that, these situations kind of pull me out of that a little bit. And so now I'm sort of in a state where I'm joyous because I don't understand anymore how not to be, unless I'm experiencing one of those moments, typically of non-acceptance. I can also, so I guess that's the best way to describe it, is like, now I mostly have reasons not to be joyous, and I can notice what those reasons are because I still have some narratives, I guess, that I'm working through. Still have some stories and stuff I'm healing, that type of thing. So I have some things that come up that pull me out of joy, but I don't so much have the other way of it where I feel joyous because I'm playing guitar or because I'm, yes, I do, but I feel joyous when I'm not playing guitar too. So it seems to be more of just a consistent state. There are certainly a bunch of stuff that I just really like doing, and I call it like when the soul sings, like playing music, writing a book, channeling. There's a bunch of different activities that I can do that I can reference that I feel like maybe more joy or something, but more like it seems to be a more consistent state for me. And I don't think it's obvious that I am in that state most of the time. I don't think I appear that way. And I think that's the thing that's been most interesting to me is that people sort of expect people to behave outwardly to express all their status, their state. Like, and I of course do that sometimes, but I think most of the time people will have no idea what's going on with me. And they may even think I'm upset when I'm just sitting there sort of marveling at the world, and I'm just quiet or something, and then they might think, oh, Sean's being quiet, I wonder what's going on, or maybe he's upset, but really I'm blissed out, just sitting there. And I may have like a dull look on my face, or who knows, right? And so that's been really interesting for me, is like sort of realizing, oh, people think I'm like pissed off sometimes, or like I'm not, or I'm in more of a negative state. And it's really interesting to me how little we really know about the other person's states, or other people's states. We really don't know. And even the really sensitive people, they're sensitive to not only other people's energy, but they're sensitive to their own stories as well. So they end up generating a lot of fiction, more or less.
Yeah.
But anyways, that is a totally different topic. But
Yeah.
all
Things.
of that's just to say that I think you get to a place where, at least I got to a place where I almost have to like seek out reasons to not be joyous. Like it's my experience, probably 99+% of the time, is a mild joy. Like not an ecstatic joy, just a mild marvel at an amazement, a quiet amazement at what's occurring, a deep understanding that I do not know what's happening, and it's such a mystery. And just that sort of pervades my experience. So I only really fall out of that when, when I'm feeling like somebody that I love is basically saying, I don't accept you this way. To me, that just feels like I don't love you. That's sort of how it feels, how it comes across to me. So that ends up becoming the most challenging thing for me. And the only real thing that I can think of that pulls me out of that joy, or actually judgment, when I'm judging others, it feels very bad. And so I usually only judge for like brief moments, and then I step away from it because I realize, oh, this is gross. It just feels gross. I don't know how to describe it. So I think that's what's really interesting about it, is that the joy or the bliss starts to permeate all of the experience. And then you don't so much notice when you're in the joy, you notice when you're not.
Yeah.
And when you're not, you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what really stuck out for me from what you said is that you're in a joy state pretty much predominantly, and you might get pulled out of it. Whereas maybe our programming, we would think it's more the opposite, that I'm sort of in whatever, a mediocre state or neutral state, and then I'll have times of joy. But this beautiful way of being that you've described seems a lot better. And I think I just have some limiting beliefs about joy. And I think I can be in that state too, if I just allow myself to dissolve some of these limiting beliefs, that I couldn't be in more joy.
Another limiting belief that I'd like to bring up is that we tend to we tend to flavor emotions with the extremity of it, and say that I'm in joy when I'm in extreme joy, right? If it's not extreme joy, then that's not really joy. Joy looks like this, like, oh my God, I'm so excited, right? Like that's what joy looks like. And compassion looks like this. And therefore, really, one of the things that I think I did was just relaxed what joy even is, right? So I don't have to be like out of my mind excited and blissed out to say that I'm in a state of joy.
Yeah, maybe joy could be a feeling of like contentment.
Literally just a peace. Yeah. You're peace. At peace.
Yes.
I would say that is joy for me. Yeah. Yeah. And so part of, I think, what we are doing is expanding, like loosening these definitions of all the feelings and the, yes, they have spectrums, like the joy can be this much or it can be this much, but really everything is joy. Yeah. It's just a spectrum of joy or light. Yeah. You're either observing the darker side of the spectrum, or you're observing the brighter side, right? It's all the same thing, really. And what we tend to do is say, okay, joy is when I'm like, woo, right? And if I'm not like that, then it's not joy. So that's why joy is sporadic, because it comes and goes with your elation. And if you're basing your contentness from the amount of times you become elated, you're gonna end up basically judging your experience as less than ideal because you're not elated enough.
Yes, that's such a great point. I agree. Yeah, just expanding even our own internal definition of joy.
Yeah,
to and that contentment and peace as well.
That could sound like we're just,
changing the rules.
Changing the rules, rose-colored glasses, and that is a little bit of what I'm recommending. Basically, we have been looking at the world through shit-colored glasses, and let's stop doing that. Yeah, why would we continue? It doesn't make any sense. Of course, I'd rather rose-colored glasses than looking at through poop glasses. you know, like,
Yeah.
and that's really how I see that. Either we can be optimistic about life and trust it, or we can be pessimistic and not trust it. And which feels better, right? Like it's to me, it's such a clear,
Yeah.
you know.
And I don't know if this is your experience or other people's experience, but as we were talking about before, I do feel the more I awaken and the more I open my heart, I do have, it feels like more moments of elation. The elation, the very high joy does seem to increase.
Yeah.
As well.
One of the most joyful moments I've had in a long time was, I think, like 6 traveling times in a row. As soon as I walked to the baggage area, my bag came around. Like,
whoa.
As I get there, it's there, you know, like perfectly. And we even experienced that in Nashville. And I was like, oh, I'm not running to get that. And you went and got it. Right.
Yeah.
I could have hurried up a little bit and got it, and it would have been perfect. But that has happened every time for the last like 6-7 times. Awesome. And it's these little things, to me, is just more signs the universe is like with me, you know. And just helping to make sure that my experience is as smooth as it can be while I still go through these lessons. You know, one of my lessons is not patience while I wait for my bag. I'm great with patience now. So I don't need to sit and wait for a bag. Right. So the bag just comes, and I'm like, so the joy that I felt, oh, I've learned so much about patience that the universe is just going, you don't have to deal with these little things anymore.
That is beautiful.
And so I'm sure patience will come up again. But what I mean is, like, you can like notice that could have went very differently. Yeah. I could have stood there for, you know, however long. Most times, all my other past traveling has not been like that. I've waited and waited or whatever, right? It's not been so smooth. And for it to even happen once or twice is a bit odd. For it to happen that many times in a row, like, I can't remember the last time that my bag was not immediately. I'm literally talking about, like, if I just walk straight, the bag arrives like literally at the intersection point where I hit the baggage claim place, and my bag arrives as I arrive. It's insane. Like, the odds of this occurring are astronomical.
Yeah.
So that type of little thing, I'm just like, oh my God. And like inside, right? Like, if you saw me in the airport, I would just be like, but inside I'm freaking out. And so, you know, those types of things, they start to just happen. You start to notice it. You trust life more, everything. So you draw more elation in. It just becomes commonplace and expected. And totally. I think that's what happens, is we start to just trust more and more. And then, of course, if we trust the universe that it's going to bring to us beautiful things come, right?
Absolutely. Beautiful. Not a good place for us to conclude.
Yeah. Oh, we went over an hour. Okay, yeah, that's a good place. Thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate it. If you haven't, consider liking the video, subscribing. We also have Patreon. So our next course is soon, right? January 7th or something, around there. So we do January courses for the higher tier Patreon members. And basically, we did the last one that's went really well. Did we end up putting the VOD up yet?
The what up?
The VOD, the video of the course. Did we end up posting that?
We did for the Patreon community.
I thought so. Okay. Yeah. So we do those, and then we post the videos, and so you guys can check that out. The link's in description for Patreon. Yep. If you're interested.
Awesome. So much love to everybody, and just every blessing for your joy in this beautiful life. Yeah. Joy to the world. It's a good topic for Christmas too. Christmas joy and stuff, right? Yes, totally. Thank you everyone for watching. Okay. Appreciate your faces. Take care. Bye.